Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my first amendment rights vlog style. Now, I know I might be late to the party about this nonsense surrounding Gene Simmons, but I do have a good bit I would like to talk about regarding the latest that I've heard about his "rock is dead" statements. It's right up my alley, and it opens up some nice discussion points. First off, I just want to reiterate something I said in my previous video, the What's Wrong With that I made about Kiss, and that being that I still like Kiss, I'm still a fan of their music, but Gene Simmons, with his recent statements, they're basically making me a bit angry and just confused about why he would say such things, especially about his own genre, especially with his use of the word finally. Rock is finally dead. Like, what? I don't get what you mean by that. But nonetheless, I'm still a fan of Kiss's music, but it doesn't mean that these particular statements are going to go unexcused. So recently, within the last month, Gene made the bold claim of rock being dead. Now, I can see where he's coming from regarding the popularity of hard rock in the mainstream, which I'm going to discuss more later. And he's even got Yngwie Malmsteen taking on this mentality of complaining about the industry and all that. Now, his statements have been debunked by quite a few people, including a few well-known musicians, including Vinnie Paul, Slash, Corey Taylor, Rob Halford, M. Shadows, Dave Jesus Grohl, Corey Brandon Putman of Norma Jean, who really tore him a new one in his response, and last but not least, Dee Snider. The links to all of these people's responses will be linked in the description. Now, Dee Snider gave a really awesome response that I'm going to read aloud to you. Rock and roll is alive and well and thriving on social media, in the streets, and in clubs and concert halls all over the world, and the bands playing it are more genuine and heartfelt than ever because they're in it for one reason: the love of rock and roll. Spend some time seeing and listening to these incredible young bands and their rabid fans, and you will know that rock and roll couldn't be more alive. Yes, it's not the same as it was for the first 50 years of rock's existence, but the fire definitely still burns. He goes on to talk about how the business aspect of rock and roll is dead, but other than that, that was a really, really awesome response that I could not agree more with. It really brought my respect for Dee Snider to a whole new level. I already had a good bit of respect for him, aside from being a big fan of Twisted Sister. When I heard about the PMRC trials that Dee Snider was involved in back in 1985, the speech that he gave was really amazing. His defense of metal. Basically, what the PMRC is, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. The PMRC stands for the Parents Music Resource Center, and it was a group that was founded by Tipper Gore, who is Al Gore's wife. She put together this organization of basically these really conservative parents who have targeted various artists, various songs, various genres of music, basically complaining about how it needs to be censored and all that. And Twisted Sister's music, more specifically the music video or song for We're Not Gonna Take It, were targets, along with a good bit of other things. And Dee Snider, along with John Denver and Frank Zappa, they went to this trial, this hearing that was being held, and basically stood their defenses. And Dee Snider did an amazing job at that whole thing, and the link to that will be in the description as well. But Dee Snider's defense of rock and roll being alive, he gave some really good justifications that I'm going to go into more depth about later in this video, about, you know, really just taking a look around at the scene, at various places, looking at social media. You could not agree more that rock is alive and well. Another really cool article that I saw that is kind of related to this was from Ricky Rocket, the drummer of Poison. And while he wasn't directly responding to Gene, he made some awesome points about how he's grateful to still be able to make money in 2014. And the thing that I love about that is the positive attitude that Ricky Rocket has. Because, you know, of course, him being a member of Poison, a band that in the mid to late 80s, they were on top of the world. Especially when they came out with their album Open Up and Say Ah, which contained two of their biggest hits, Nothing But a Good Time and Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And while Poison isn't exactly at the level of popularity that they once were, the fact that Ricky Rocket is still, conveying this positive attitude of still being able to make money, still being able to reach an audience, still being able to play at various sized venues is just really awesome to see, especially in 2014. When, like I said, Poison isn't exactly, cranking out these really huge hits that they once were. Now, do I think rock is dead? No. Absolutely not. Far from it. And my reasoning behind that is, as long as it's still being made and it's still reaching an audience, it's still being kept alive. As long as there's still a market for it, which there is. There is still a market for rock. There is still a market for metal. There is still a market for punk. There's a market for all of these genres of music. So the fact that it's still being made, it's still being produced, it's still being played, these artists are still playing for varying sized crowds, that's enough of a justification for me to say that these types of music, and in this case rock, is still, alive. Even with hard rock, there is still music being made, not just with, throwback bands. For example, Steel Panther taking on the 80s glam metal sound, as well as Buck Cherry taking a bit of a Guns N' Roses approach with modern rock, not just with throwback bands, but also stylistically. Bands in the post-grunge, alternative rock, and even alternative metal genres are still following the basic hard rock guidelines as far as the types of riff goes, chord progressions, drum beats, vocal styles, song topics. It's still being made. Stylistically, hard rock is still being made. So with that said, Gene Simmons could not be further from the truth with his statements, but it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. He's still prolonging and perpetuating his rock is dead bullshit by now claiming no iconic bands came from the 90s. This feels like projection on his part because Kiss wasn't doing as well in the 90s. They were coming out with fucking Carnival of Souls and Psycho Circus. They weren't releasing the greatest of material, and Kiss isn't exactly considered a band that was really up top in the 90s. Different types of music was coming out. Different styles were being explored in the 90s, and the fact that the 90s just seems so diverse, that's what makes the 90s such a great decade for music. So the way Gene Simmons is looking at this, it's no different than a disgruntled 80s metal fan or a classic rock elitist. The kinds of people that refuse to look past 91 or 92 for music, and the people that refuse to acknowledge the good in these types of music just because it isn't, classic rock, that it isn't 80s style rock or metal. I've spoken about these kinds of people before. They are some of the most close-minded people ever, and if there's one thing I don't like about people, it's close-mindedness when it comes to music, and really anything else really, but more specifically music. Now, were there some iconic artists and bands that were coming out of the 90s that are considered iconic and influential? Absolutely. Like I said, the 90s were very diverse in the styles of music that were coming out. I could go on for hours talking about great bands and artists that came from the 90s, but to say that no bands or artists that came from the 90s are iconic or influential is not only ridiculous, it's also insulting. Musical scenes were beginning to take on lives of their own. They began to really grow and expand in the 90s, and to this day scenes are still growing and they're still thriving. Like with the Dee Snider article, he gave examples of going to concerts, really taking a look around at the scene. That should be enough of a testament that the varying scenes in rock are still growing and thriving. Even, with my experiences, I'm part of a scene out here in this part of New York, the punk scene out here. Whenever I play a show with Gardens of Acadia, at whatever sized venue to however size of a crowd, I feel just so alive out there. Meeting all these bands, making these friends, and seeing the kinds of shows they put on, with all the energy being exerted from them onto the crowd. It makes you feel alive, and I feel alive on this scene, and I feel a similar way whenever I go to any type of concert, whether it be a metal concert, whether it be a punk concert, whether it be a regular rock concert, but with all the energy being exerted. You feel the noise, like Quiet Riot put it. Fucking getting wild, wild, wild. It makes you feel alive, being surrounded by the music. And that is enough of a testament to show that, you know, various scenes, types of music, they're alive. They ain't dead. But now let's bring it back around to Mr. Simmons. And when I say Mr. Simmons, I don't mean the teacher from Hey Arnold. Gene Simmons, by saying this, all this really shows me is that he's an attention whore who abides by the bad publicity equals good publicity mentality and will say anything to keep his name relevant and get people to talk about him. He doesn't care how ridiculous he sounds. He doesn't care how profound and stupid he sounds saying this shit. He just wants people to talk about him. He wants to keep his name relevant. You know who you remind me of, Gene? You remind me of someone else we know. I'm sure you've heard of him. I'm sure everybody watching this video has heard from him too. Can't seem to put my name on him. On his, though. Give me a moment. God. Oh yeah! It reminds me a lot of this person by the name of Justin Bieber. You remind me of Bieber, Gene Simmons. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel to be compared to Justin Bieber? That you're taking on such a similar mentality of Bieber's. Bieber has been known to do some really stupid and idiotic things just to get people to talk about him. And you're acting just like him, Gene. So cut it out. Stop being an idiot. It's making me really upset and enraged. It almost gets to the point where I feel uncomfortable calling myself a Kiss fan. But again, I just need to remind myself that this doesn't really have anything to do with Kiss's music. But you... fucking God, Gene. Just shut the hell up, please. So in closing, I still like Kiss, I still like their music, I still value Gene only as far as his contributions to Kiss's music goes. Whether it be in the lyrics, whether it be in the bass parts, and whether it be in the vocal parts when he does vocals. But as far as him as a person goes with all this, he can go fuck himself. Seriously. So, I'm gonna end this video by... I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod. Alright. You guys who have seen my room tour videos will know that I've had this bobblehead sitting up here, and it's a pretty snazzy bobblehead. So I'm not going to completely dispose of it, but I'm going to put it away somewhere. Don't show your face around me for a long time, sir. Adios. So... hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this was informative. Hope it made you think a little bit. Take care, guys, and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I will see you next time.